Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pilot's Wife podcast. This is Amy McLaren. Phew, what a week this has been. So really, really crazy. But what I'm concerned about and what I'm thinking about right now is how I'm going to have a break and how I'm going to just do some stuff that I've been wanting to do and been putting off because I've got so much other stuff to do. And I want to also have a break from something that keeps bugging me about Josh. Not necessarily about Josh, but it's something that if we argue, it's something that we argue about. And so I've come up with a plan and I'll share it with you in case you want to join me in trying this out over the holiday and see how it goes, see if this works to give you a break over Christmas from something that you often argue about. So here's the question. For those of us who don't have a picture-perfect relationship, who don't put our highlights reel on social media and pretend it's all rosy, where can I get some down-to-earth inspiration without any religious barriers? Who can give me real-life encouragement, help me be a better spouse, and tell me how to get an even more enriching relationship without becoming a doormat? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. I'm Amy McLaren, and this is the Pilot's Wife podcast. Okay, so just before I get into the episode today, for those of you who've been listening, and a few weeks back I did that Pilot's Wife quiz night, and I said last time that I think Josh was going to listen to it when he did his last run, and he did. He listened to it and he came back. I said, so how'd I do? And he said, the thing I love most about you is that you're my biggest cheerleader. So that was nice. That was good to hear. And we have this thing in our marriage where we like to think that if the other one's down, then the other one pulls them up and vice versa. And so we kind of try and practice that. And so that was cool. But I said, but did I give everything else right? And he's like, yeah, pretty much. And that was kind of it, except he asked which piece of clothing I was talking about that had a hole in it. But so that's kind of it. I guess I didn't know if I was expecting more than that, but at least I didn't get anything majorly wrong, so that's good. So for those of you who've heard a bit about me speak or know me, you might know that I have a little bit of an overly active sense of wasting stuff. And so I blame it on my upbringing. So my parents are from Holland and their parents grew up in kind of like, the war and the tulip famines and things like that. And so their kind of outlook on life is very much like don't waste stuff because you never know what's going to hit. And I guess, this year we've seen kind of a major thing happening, which might have instilled that in a number of people newly this year again. But I've had it drummed into me so much during my childhood, like don't waste it, like don't have too long showers because it's a waste of water, and don't eat all your food because otherwise it's a waste of food. Like this whole waste thing has just been drummed into me so much that I can't just not say something when I see my kids wasting something, or even Josh sometimes. But I find it easier to hold off with Josh, but there's one thing that I find hard, really, really hard to hold off on, and it's using the water, because we have tank water, and if we run out, it's a bit of a pain. And so I just find it so hard just to not say anything. I can't hold myself back, and I really, really try. And so sometimes it just comes out, and he knows I'm going to say it. He's kind of waiting for me to say it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. Oh, I can't help it. And it just comes out. So sometimes he's like really graceful about it. But then other times he's like, would you just stop? And so I guess that's maybe one thing that we argue about, where I'm like, I don't know how to not say anything. And I know it's stupid. It's just, like if we have to fill the water, we're just going to have to fill the water. It's not worth, we're still careful, but I just don't need to say something all the time. It's kind of like, like someone who's kind of front seat driver and you just don't need to say something because the other person sees it and they're going to, not drive into that person who's just braked or whatever. And it's just really, really hard not to say something, but I'm really trying. And so I had this idea of something that I'm going to try, that I'm inviting you to try with me. And it kind of comes from the idea of like, well, let's just replace it, because there's these, in like psychological kind of interventions and stuff, there's these different therapies you can use. And one's kind of like this replacement theory, like where you replace one behavior with another and you learn to kind of do that over time. So I'm kind of just going to try and so it's, if I'm going to replace that thing, it's got to be with something that I enjoy, right? It's going to be, because that's going to motivate me to turn that thing off and turn on something else. And so I'm trying to think of something that we just love talking about, Josh and I. So can you think of something that you both love talking about, or can just talk about forever, and you both just go on and on because it's such a topic you're both interested in? And if you don't have something like that, that's okay. I can provide one for you. But what we're going to try and do is, every time we're having this temptation to say something that we know we shouldn't say, and it's just that urge, that kind of like nurtured urge that we've had from growing up or whatever, that we'll just try and replace it with this other thing that we love talking about, and we'll just start talking about that instead. And so if you haven't got something like that, so for me and Josh, we love talking about, we love talking about building in houses, but because Josh is working in the project management industry, in the building industry now as a project manager, I've got to watch what we talk about, because it's still got to be fun for him and not like too much about work. But that's something we love talking about. And we also love talking about marriage stuff and about, what we're going to do next year, and about going on holidays and camping and stuff like that. So just, there's a few ideas there that I'm just going to bring up, and I'm just going to talk about them instead. If you can't think of anything, then one idea might be that you can just imagine that your house burned down, and whether you're renting or you own your house, you suddenly inherit $5 million from a great auntie that's passed away. And so essentially, you don't have to worry about money. You have no possessions because it all got lost in the fire, and you have to start again. And try and talk about, well, what would you do? Because this is an opportunity to either start afresh and just do all the things that you've always wanted to do, or it's like, hey, we're actually quite happy with what we'd built, and let's rebuild that thing again. So it might be something that you would enjoy talking about, because it's kind of like, if we could start from scratch and do anything we wanted, what would we do? So I'm gonna try that. Every time that I see someone using water for like a millisecond longer than they need to, I'm just gonna start thinking about, I wonder what we could do next year with this thing, or I wonder next year who we could, catch up with that we haven't caught up with for a while, or something like that. And so that's just my little challenge. And the thing with this is that if we can have a rest from arguing, then maybe we can feel like we have a rest. So I don't know about some of you, but if you argue about one of these things quite often, then it's actually a physiological tenseness and stress and strain that helps you not relax, or it stops you from relaxing. But if you don't have that happening, then you might find you actually get along really well. And so for a lot of couples, there's usually only like one or two things that they kind of argue over and over and over about. And the reason that they're arguing over it is because they're trying to discuss it, to try and resolve it, but they're just kind of like, whatever the reason is, crossing paths. And there are a number of reasons for that, and we go through those when we work with couples. But if you're continually doing that and you can't work out what it is, so you're having the same arguments, it can be just like really wearying, right? But if you can just not broach those whatever 2 or 3 topics, then you probably actually will get along really well and have a really nice time. And so there's nothing wrong with deciding that you're just not going to talk about it for a couple of weeks so you can have a rest. Unless there's like a deadline and you have to sort something out. But otherwise, like maybe giving that rest in your relationship might kind of renew some of the other feelings about love and about friendship and companionship and stuff that you kind of need in your relationship, as a balance for all the other stuff that the day-to-day stuff and the stuff you have to work out. So I encourage you to try this with me and have a go and see how it works. And I look forward to hearing from you next year about how it went and whether you had a good rest and a good break over Christmas. But be blessed, have an awesome time of rest. And next year I'll be back on, I think it's the 13th of Jan, with our first episode of the year, episode 40. If you do find yourself struggling in your relationship and it's beyond the kind of stuff that we're going over in the episodes, you need some more kind of significant help in your relationship, we can offer both teaching courses where we teach the material in a group session, and you can take that material and apply it to your relationship and solve the problems for yourself. And we also do in-depth guidance sessions for couples where we do the teaching, but we also take them through it at the same time. And we can do that both in Eastern Standard Time and in New Zealand time Zoom calls with couples. Check out www.nomythmarriages, that's marriages.com/married for details and if you want a book. Have an awesome break, and I will catch you in 2021. Thanks for listening. Ka kite.